Close your eyes for a moment and take a deep breath. Think about the life you've lived, the laughter, the love, the sacrifices, the struggles. You have spent decades working hard, raising a family, helping others, and being the steady, reliable force for so many people. But now, in this season of your life, let me ask you something. Have you given enough to yourself? Have you taken the time to truly care for your own well-being, your own happiness, your own peace? You see, as we grow older, we begin to realize something profound. Life isn't just about how much we give to others. It's about how much we protect and nurture our own spirit. I want to tell you a story about a man named Lao Zhang. He was the kindest soul you could ever meet, always ready to lend a hand. After he retired, he made it his mission to help his neighbors, fixing things, running errands, even lending money when someone needed it. And people adored him for it. But one day, he walked into his home to find it ransacked, his valuables stolen. The police later discovered that the thief was none other than a young man he had helped many times before. That was the moment Lao Zhang realized, being a good person doesn't mean you should let yourself be used. My friends, after 60, life should be about wisdom, peace, and joy. But to achieve that, there are certain things we must stop doing. We must let go of the habits, the mindsets, and the burdens that weigh us down. And today, I want to share with you 8 things to stop doing after 60, so you can live the rest of your life on your own terms. Before we begin, I'd really appreciate it if you like this video. It helps me keep sharing more important lessons. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting the subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Also, if you enjoy this video, please comment 1. If you don't, comment 0 so I know how to improve. Now, let's get started. 1. Stop being too soft-hearted. There is a beauty in kindness, a deep warmth in generosity, and a quiet dignity in being there for others. But after 60, there is also wisdom in knowing when to stop giving too much. Many of us were raised to believe that being selfless is a virtue, that saying yes to every request makes us good people. And for years, we have done just that, helping family, neighbors, friends, sometimes even strangers, without hesitation. But what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness? What happens when people see your heart as something they can take advantage of? Let me tell you again about Lao Zhang. He had spent his whole life believing in the goodness of others, never hesitating to help when someone needed him. After he retired, he became the go-to person in his neighborhood. He fixed things for free, lent money without question, and never turned down a request for help. But kindness, when given without limits, can sometimes invite trouble. One evening, he came home to find his house had been broken into. Valuables gone. His sense of safety shattered. The police later told him the culprit was a young man from the neighborhood, one he had helped many times before. A man who had borrowed money from him, received his kindness, and yet, in the end, saw him as nothing more than an easy target. That night, Lao Zhang sat in his empty living room and asked himself, "Did I bring this upon myself?" It is a painful lesson to learn. The world does not always reward kindness. Some people see a generous heart and mistake it for an open door, one they can walk through whenever they want, taking as much as they please. And when you finally say no, they leave. They disappear. They were never there for you. They were there for what you could give. This is why, after 60, we must learn to protect our hearts, to set boundaries, to understand that saying no does not make us unkind. It makes us wise. So, the next time someone asks for more than you can give, ask yourself, is this kindness, or am I allowing myself to be used? Being a good person does not mean being a doormat. Your peace, your security, and your happiness matter too. It's time to give to yourself first. 2. Stop being blindly optimistic about relationships. There's a certain innocence in optimism, a belief that if we give love, kindness, and understanding to others, they will return it in kind. But after 60, we begin to see the truth. Not all relationships are equal, and not everyone values us the way we value them. How many times have you reached out to a relative or an old friend, only to be met with silence? How often have you given your time, your energy, even your resources, only to realize that the people you're helping wouldn't do the same for you? It's a painful realization, but an important one. Loyalty and love must go both ways. I once knew a woman named Margaret. She was the kind of person who always believed in the best in people. She had a large extended family, and no matter how they treated her, she was always the first to help. When someone needed money, she found a way to give it. When someone needed a favor, she dropped everything to be there. And she never asked for anything in return. But life has a way of teaching hard lessons. One day, Margaret fell ill. It wasn't anything major at first, just a lingering sickness that made daily tasks difficult. She expected her family, the same people she had spent years helping, to step up, to visit, to call and check in. But no one came. Not one phone call. Not one offer to help. It took that moment of loneliness, of realizing she had been giving and giving without ever receiving, for her to understand, some relationships exist only when you are useful. After 60, we cannot afford to be blindly optimistic about the people in our lives. We must open our eyes and recognize who truly values us and who only keeps us around out of convenience. A real relationship is not one-sided. It is not built on guilt or obligation. It is built on respect, mutual effort, and love that flows both ways. If you find yourself constantly chasing someone's attention, constantly being the one who reaches out, constantly giving with nothing in return, it's time to stop. Your time is precious. Your energy is valuable. Instead of pouring it into relationships that drain you, invest it in people who appreciate you. And if that means your circle gets smaller, so be it. A few real connections are worth more than 100 shallow ones. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment one below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for taking the time to watch. 3. Stop over socializing without purpose. There was a time when being surrounded by people felt like a measure of success. The more friends we had, the more social events we attended, the more it seemed like life was full and meaningful. But after 60, something shifts. You start to realize that not all social interactions bring joy, and not all friendships are real. Some people are simply passing through, and some conversations leave you feeling emptier than before. The truth is, after a certain point in life, it's not about how many people you know, it's about who truly adds value to your life. I once knew a man named Richard. After retiring, he was determined not to let loneliness creep in. So, he said yes to everything: dinner invitations, club meetings, social gatherings, even outings with acquaintances he barely knew. His calendar was packed. But something strange happened. Despite being around people all the time, he felt lonelier than ever. The conversations were surface level, filled with small talk and meaningless chatter. He realized that most of these people didn't really care about him. They cared about passing the time, about having someone to talk to in the moment. But there was no depth, no real connection. And after a while, he found himself exhausted, drained by interactions that brought him no real joy. This is a lesson we all must learn. Socializing should enrich your life, not deplete it. It is not about being around people just for the sake of company. It is about choosing relationships and interactions that make you feel truly seen and valued. A long lunch with an old friend who understands you is more fulfilling than a party full of acquaintances who wouldn't notice if you weren't there. A quiet evening with a book, a hobby, or a meaningful conversation is far better than forcing yourself into social situations that feel empty. After 60, we don't have time to waste on meaningless interactions. If a friendship brings stress, let it go. If a conversation feels forced, don't force it. If an event doesn't excite you, skip it. Your time is yours now. Spend it wisely. Choose depth over quantity. Choose connection over obligation. Choose to surround yourself with people who lift you up, not just fill up space. Because at this stage in life, true joy isn't found in crowds. It's found in authentic moments with the right people. 4. Stop neglecting savings and financial security. Money has always been a complicated subject. For years, we've worked hard, earned a living, provided for our families, and maybe even put a little aside for the future. But after 60, the reality of financial security becomes more important than ever. Without savings, without a plan, life in our later years can become stressful, uncertain, and even undignified. It's a hard truth to face, but one that cannot be ignored. Financial stability after 60 is not about luxury, it's about peace of mind. I once knew a woman named Linda. She had always been generous with her money, helping her children, lending to friends, and living in the moment. She never thought too much about the future because she assumed things would always work out. Then, in her late 60s, she faced a sudden health issue. Nothing too serious at first, but enough to require frequent doctor visits and expensive medication. That's when she realized she didn't have enough saved. Her small pension and Social Security check barely covered her daily expenses, let alone unexpected medical bills. She had always assumed her children would help if she needed it, but they had their own financial struggles. For the first time in her life, she felt helpless. She had spent decades working, yet here she was, worrying about whether she could afford her next prescription. This is why, after 60, neglecting financial security is one of the most dangerous mistakes we can make. It's not about greed. It's not about being overly cautious. It's about making sure that, no matter what happens, we have enough to take care of ourselves. Because the sad reality is, when financial struggles hit in old age, they don't just take away money, they take away freedom, dignity, and choices. So, what can we do? First, be mindful of spending. Small luxuries are fine, but unnecessary expenses add up. Second, stop lending money without boundaries. It's hard to say no, especially to family, but your future security must come first. Third, plan for medical expenses. Healthcare can drain savings faster than anything else, so having a plan is essential. At this stage in life, financial security is not about having more, it's about having enough. Enough to live without fear. Enough to say yes to life's joys without worrying about the cost. Enough to face the future with confidence. Because after 60, money isn't just currency, it's peace, it's independence, and it's the ability to live on your own terms. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 5. Stop ignoring your health. If there is one truth that becomes clearer with age, it is this: Health is the foundation of everything. Without it, all the money in the world, all the time in the world, and all the love in the world cannot be fully enjoyed. Yet, after 60, too many people ignore the signals their bodies are sending them. They delay checkups, brush off small pains, and convince themselves that it's just a part of getting older. But ignoring your health doesn't just steal years from your life, it steals the quality of those years. I once knew a man named Robert. Strong, independent, and full of life, he prided himself on never needing a doctor. "I feel fine," he would say. Why waste money on checkups? But small aches turned into bigger pains. A nagging cough wouldn't go away. He started feeling tired all the time. Still, he refused to go to the doctor. By the time he finally did, the diagnosis was serious. What could have been a small, manageable issue had turned into a life-threatening illness. His treatment drained not only his strength but also his finances. And as he lay in a hospital bed, he admitted something heartbreaking. "I thought ignoring it would make it go away. I was wrong." This is why, after 60, your health must be your top priority. It is not selfish. It is not unnecessary. It is essential to living a full and happy life. Regular checkups, screenings, and preventative care can catch problems before they grow. Exercise, even something as simple as daily walking, keeps your body strong. Eating well doesn't mean dieting. It means fueling your body with what it truly needs. And sleep? It's not a luxury, it's how your body repairs itself. But beyond the physical, your mental and emotional health matter just as much. Stress, loneliness, and negative thinking can be just as damaging as a bad diet. Surround yourself with positive influences, engage in activities that bring you joy, and never be afraid to seek help when needed. Because here's the truth, you don't just want to live long, you want to live well. You want to wake up each day with energy, with clarity, with the ability to enjoy life's simple pleasures. Health is not just about adding years to your life, it's about adding life to your years. And that starts with taking care of yourself, today. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment 3 below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 6. Stop losing your temper with family. Family, one of the greatest sources of love, yet sometimes, one of the greatest sources of frustration. After 60, many people find themselves growing impatient with their children, their grandchildren, or even their spouse. Small disagreements turn into big arguments, and before they know it, relationships become strained. But here's the truth, losing your temper with family doesn't bring respect, it brings distance. And at this stage in life, the last thing you want is to push away the people who matter most. I once knew a man named George. A proud father, a devoted husband, and a grandfather who had spent his life providing for his family. But as he got older, he found himself growing more frustrated. He would snap at his children for not calling often enough, criticize his grandchildren for spending too much time on their phones, and lecture his wife over little things. He didn't see it as a problem, he thought he was just speaking his mind. But then, one Thanksgiving, something happened. His family barely spoke at dinner. Conversations were careful, measured, as if everyone was walking on eggshells. His grandchildren avoided him, his children kept their distance, and his wife looked exhausted. That night, as he sat alone in his chair, he realized the painful truth. His anger wasn't bringing his family closer, it was pushing them away. After 60, life is too short to spend it arguing over small things. Yes, You may not always agree with your children's choices. Yes, the younger generation may do things differently than you. But anger, frustration, and constant criticism do not change people. They only create walls. Wouldn't you rather spend your years in love and laughter than in silence and resentment? Instead of reacting with anger, try understanding. Instead of criticism, try patience. Instead of focusing on what your family doesn't do, focus on the moments you still have together. Speak with kindness, even when you're frustrated. Express your concerns with love, not harshness. Because one day, you will look around the room and realize that what truly matters isn't being right in an argument. It's having the people you love still sitting there beside you. A peaceful heart creates a peaceful home. And in the end, isn't that what we all want? 7. Stop worrying excessively about your children's lives. As parents, we spend most of our lives worrying about our children. From the moment they are born, we watch over them, protect them, guide them, and sacrifice for them. But after 60, there comes a time when we must accept a simple truth. Our children's lives are no longer ours to control. We have done our part. We have raised them, taught them right from wrong, and given them the foundation they need. Now, we must learn to let go. I once knew a woman named Evelyn. She had 3 children, all grown with families of their own. But even in her 70s, she couldn't stop worrying about them. If one of her sons had trouble at work, she would stay up all night thinking about it. If her daughter and son-in-law had an argument, she would stress for days, fearing the worst. She would call them constantly, offering advice, even when it wasn't asked for. Over time, her children began to feel overwhelmed, even suffocated. They started calling less, visiting less. Not because they didn't love her, but because they felt like every conversation was filled with worry, fear, and unsolicited advice. One day, Evelyn's daughter gently told her, "Mom, we love you, but we need space to live our own lives." That was the moment she realized her worrying wasn't helping her children, it was driving them away. Worrying excessively about our children does not protect them, it only burdens our hearts and strains our relationships. No matter how much we want to, we cannot fight their battles for them. We cannot prevent them from making mistakes, nor can we shield them from life's struggles. And truthfully, we shouldn't try. Our children need to grow through their own experiences, just as we did. They need to learn to stand on their own, to face challenges, to succeed and to fail. After 60, it is time to trust. Trust that we raised them well. Trust that they are capable. Trust that, even if they struggle, they will find their own way. Instead of worrying, let's support them without control, love them without conditions, and be a presence of peace rather than anxiety. Because in the end, the greatest gift we can give our children isn't our worry, it's our faith in them, our confidence in their ability to navigate life, and our own ability to finally live for ourselves. 8. Stop over-prioritizing relatives who don't reciprocate. Family is important. There's no denying that. We grow up believing that blood is thicker than water, that relatives will always be there for us, and that family bonds are unbreakable. But after 60, life teaches us a different lesson. Not all relatives value us the way we value them. Some relationships are built on love and loyalty, but others exist simply out of obligation. And the hard truth is, if we keep giving to people who don't give back, we are the ones who end up hurt. I once knew a man named Harold. He spent years putting his family first, his siblings, his cousins, his extended relatives. Whenever someone needed money, he gave. Whenever someone needed help, he was there. And for decades, He convinced himself that they would do the same for him. But as he grew older, he started to notice something. The calls only came when someone needed something. Invitations to family gatherings became fewer. And when he finally needed help, when he was sick and struggling, not one of those relatives showed up. That was the moment he realized that he had spent his whole life prioritizing people who never truly prioritized him. This is why, after 60, we must be honest with ourselves about which relationships truly deserve our time and energy. Yes, family is important, but not every relative is a real friend. Real relationships, whether with family or not, are based on mutual respect, love, and care. If you find yourself constantly reaching out, constantly giving, constantly making an effort while the other person does nothing in return, it may be time to step back. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop pouring energy into people who don't value you, you make space for those who do. Maybe it's an old friend, a neighbor, or even a new connection you never expected. Family is not just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who supports you, and who truly cares about your happiness. So don't let guilt keep you tied to relationships that drain you. Give your time to the people who truly deserve it. Because at this stage in life, you shouldn't have to beg for love, attention, or respect. You should be surrounded by people who appreciate you, not just for what you give, but for who you are. As we stand at this stage of life, one truth becomes clearer than ever. Our time, our energy, and our peace are more valuable than anything else. We have spent decades giving, working, sacrificing, worrying, and putting others before ourselves. But now, after 60, it is time to ask, what about you? What about your happiness? What about your peace of mind? We have talked about the 8 things that silently drain our joy, the habits, mindsets, and relationships that no longer serve us. Maybe you recognized yourself in some of these stories. Maybe you've been too soft-hearted, giving more than you should. Maybe you've held on to relationships that no longer give back. Maybe you've been worrying about your children more than you should, or holding on to anger that is only pushing people away. Maybe you've been neglecting your health or ignoring your own financial security while trying to help others. Whatever it is, I want you to know this: you have the power to change it. But change doesn't happen overnight. It starts with one decision, the decision to put yourself first. To stop giving to people who take you for granted. To stop carrying burdens that are no longer yours to bear. To stop worrying about things you cannot control. And most importantly, to stop living in ways that make you feel drained, unappreciated, and invisible. You deserve more. You deserve better. So tonight, when you lay in bed, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. What is the one thing I need to let go of? Maybe it's an unhealthy relationship. Maybe it's years of guilt. Maybe it's the habit of saying yes when you really want to say no. Whatever it is, make a promise to yourself that tomorrow, you will take the first step toward a freer, happier life. Because here's the truth, this is your time. This is your moment to live for yourself, to embrace the years ahead with peace, wisdom, and joy. You are not here to carry everyone else's burdens. You are here to enjoy life. To laugh. To love. To wake up each morning knowing that you are living on your own terms. So, take that step. Choose yourself. Because after 60, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to live exactly as you deserve. Thank you for following us till the end. Don't forget to show some love by clicking the like button and subscribe. This supports the channel and allows me to continue creating content for you. Leave your thoughts or comments below. Feel free to express yourself and stay positive. See you next time.